The Olympic boycott is happening. Apple made a very shady deal with China, and China may surpass the US in space. And more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by MOVA globes. These are really amazing globes that spin on their own without cords or batteries. And whether you get this black and silver model or one of the other great world map designs, you can appreciate the beauty of our planet. And on the other side of the planet, from me in New York, Beijing, where the 2022 Winter Olympics are just 2 months away. China's super excited. Take a look at the venue. They've already got all the fake snow in place. It's going to be a huge celebration. If only people would show up. But sad news, Beijing. The US has announced a diplomatic boycott.
The Biden administration will not send any diplomatic or official representation to the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games, given the PRC's ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang and other human rights abuses.
The Biden administration has been under loads of pressure to do this. For months, Democrats, Republicans, and human rights activists have pushed President Joe Biden to use February's Olympics in Beijing as a platform to rebuke China. That's amazing. Not only was there agreement between Democrats and Republicans, there was also agreement between politicians and actual human beings. It's like watching a solar eclipse. You know it happens, but you never expect to see it. Also, don't look directly at politicians, or you might go blind. Back to the U.S. diplomatic boycott. The U.S. is not stopping U.S. athletes from attending the Olympics, but no U.S. officials will go. After the U.S. announcement, the floodgates opened. Other countries started announcing their own diplomatic boycotts. Lithuania, New Zealand, Australia, Scotland, the UK, and Canada. Oh, that's just wonderful. China goes through all the trouble of hosting the Olympics, and they don't want to come. Well, you know what? That's fine. There are other people who want to come. China doesn't need you.
No one cares whether they come or not, and it has no influence on Beijing's success in hosting the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, China will be just fine without you. And you know what? The U.S. wasn't even invited in the first place. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying tweeted, "The Beijing Winter Olympic Games is a party by invitation only. Some U.S. politicians need not flatter themselves by weaponizing their attendance. One can't decline an invitation without first receiving one." So basically, you didn't break up with me, I broke up with you. But also, China is saying the Olympics, the international sporting event that is supposed to bring the world together to share our common humanity, is an invitation-only party, and they control the invitations. Well, I guess that explains why Beijing isn't inviting any spectators except Chinese fans who meet certain requirements. I'm guessing those requirements will be being COVID-free and loving the Communist Party. Meanwhile, the Chinese regime is continuing to act in a calm, rational manner. The Chinese ambassador to the UK tweeted, "U.S. politicians keep hyping a diplomatic boycott without even being invited to the games." And my favorite Chinese state-run media, the Global Times, tweeted, "The U.S. is making itself a joke by announcing boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics that had not invited U.S. politicians." Yeah, you see? The Chinese Communist Party totally doesn't care. And to prove how little it cared, the Communist Party began making threats, saying the U.S. will pay a price for boycotting the Olympics. They're not lashing out. It's totally normal to punish someone for not coming to the party you didn't invite them to. It's like Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said,
What the U.S. should do is to correct its attitude, practice a more united Olympic spirit, and take China's concerns seriously.
And in case you're wondering, China says nobody cares about Australia's Olympic boycott either, so there. All in all, it was a pretty good week for me. Look, I know some people are saying a diplomatic boycott isn't enough, and I get it. It would be much better to move the Olympic Games out of China. But this is a good start. Because back in 2008, when Beijing hosted the Summer Olympics, there wasn't even a diplomatic boycott. Sure, the Communist Party hadn't started putting Uyghurs into concentration camps yet in 2008, but there were plenty of them in labor camps. And the Chinese regime was still repressing the Tibetans and the Mongolians and Christians and human rights activists, and the list goes on. The Communist Party was definitely already killing Falun Gong practitioners and selling their organs. Meanwhile, here is then U.S. President George W. Bush having a great old time at the Summer Olympics in Beijing. He's palling around with Yang Jiechi and Xi Jinping, and then Chinese leader Hu Jintao. I know, it's shocking. Who is actually smiling? And President Bush wasn't alone at the Olympics. Hey, isn't that Bill Gates? And look, Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd was also there. And also at the Beijing Olympics was then UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown, and current Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and future Prime Minister David Beckham. I think you get what I'm saying. Speaking of covering up China's human rights atrocities, there's been a lot of controversy over whether the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of the Uyghurs, a Muslim ethnic minority, is genocide. Both the Trump and Biden administrations called the Communist Party's actions genocide. And now, an independent tribunal in London has ruled it a genocide too. The Uyghur Tribunal cited birth control and sterilization measures allegedly carried out by the state against the Uyghurs as the primary reason for reaching its conclusion. And coming up after the break, Apple's rotten China deal. Welcome back. As I said earlier, China wants to make the U.S. pay. And the Pentagon has been keenly aware of the advancements made by the Chinese military. China has conducted hundreds of hypersonic missile tests, while the U.S. has done just 9. And according to a top Space Force general, China may soon overtake the U.S. in space plans.
On average, they are building and fielding and updating their space capabilities at twice the rate we are. Means that very soon, if we don't start accelerating our development and delivery capabilities, they will exceed it. They will exceed us, and 2030 is not an unreasonable estimate.
Nevertheless, the U.S. military is still the dominant force globally. And this week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken had a warning for the Chinese Communist Party if it tries to invade Taiwan.
We are resolutely committed to Taiwan, to making sure it has the means to defend itself. I hope that China's leaders think very carefully about this and about not precipitating a crisis that would have, I think, terrible consequences.
This week, Blinken also told a gathering of prominent leaders in business and politics to be on guard about Chinese investments. He said, when it comes to Chinese investment, there is no distinction between a so-called private enterprise and the state. If a private Chinese enterprise makes the investment, the state has access to whatever that enterprise has access to. Thank you, Secretary Blinken, for spelling it out like that. Too bad that's not a message Ray Dalio and other Wall Street hedge fund executives are hearing. They're making huge, stupid investments in China. Speaking of businesses making stupid China deals, Apple. CEO Tim Cook made a secret $275 billion deal with China. It's pretty bad. Not only did Tim Cook personally lobby Chinese officials, Apple made some, shall we say, concessions to the Communist Party. Basically, China was threatening Apple, so in 2016, Tim Cook agreed to help Chinese manufacturers develop the most advanced manufacturing technologies and support the training of high-quality Chinese talents. So, Apple is teaching China's most talented people how to steal Apple's technology. That's how you get things like the Goo phone. Apple also promised to use more components from Chinese suppliers in its devices, sign deals with Chinese software firms, collaborate on technology with Chinese universities, and directly invest in Chinese tech companies. This means companies and universities with direct links to the Chinese Communist Party could be designing software and maybe even hardware for Apple. Also, Apple is collaborating on technology with Chinese universities. And Chinese universities are collaborating on technology with the Chinese military. Could there be a problem here? Meanwhile, in the ongoing Mac versus PC war, Microsoft seized 42 websites used by China-based hackers to attack the US. Which is good because Chinese hackers can cause some serious damage. That's what Australia found out, when Chinese hackers came within minutes of shutting off electricity for 3 million people. China's basically launched a trade war against Australia. That's because Australia wanted an investigation into the origin of the coronavirus. But it's not just Australia that has found itself on the CCP's naughty list. Lithuania is also being hit by a trade war over its support for Taiwan. China has essentially banned all imports from Lithuania. Fortunately, that's only about 1% of all Lithuania's total exports. As I always say, those who get in too deep with China are the ones who get hurt. But a Lithuanian MP, Mata Maldeikis, is leading a delegation in Taiwan. And Hu Xijin, the editor-in-chief of my favorite Chinese state-run media, the Global Times, called him a low-end European political actor. To which Maldeikis responded, "She is sending its clowns to attack us. We should call China the People's Republic of Comedy." Now, I know I should be happy about this, but I'm not. I've been doing this show for almost 10 years. Why have I never come up with the People's Republic of Comedy? This guy's a genius. And this episode has been sponsored by Mova Globes. I've talked about Mova Globes before. I love the technology. It spins automatically, powered by ambient sunlight. When you pick it up, it keeps spinning. And when you put it back on its base, it corrects its motion. Mova has dozens of other cool designs too. And from now until Christmas, if you spend $550, you'll get a free 4.5-inch globe, plus free shipping. Just apply our special code, China Uncensored. So, click the link in the description below and pick your favorite version. And when you buy a Mova Globe, you'll also be supporting your favorite show about China. So, click below to check out Mova Globes and use the code China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.